this not only infects your general belief systems and MO and causes you suffering, but it infects your vibe, right? You can sense this off of people, like it comes through or it comes out in your honest signals. What up, Casanova? Today, I want to talk about how resentment is destroying your life, how it's weighing you down and preventing you from achieving the kind of success in life that you want, because you're clinging on to these negative emotions, and it's just really toxic, okay? And it's very, very unhelpful. Now, this is going to be a two-part guide where in this video, in part one, I'm gonna first paint you a general picture of what resentment is, give you a bunch of different examples of how it can manifest itself into your life, and just give you some general perspective as to what a negative force it is. Then in part two, I'm gonna give you a 4-step formula for how to deal with resentment in a healthy and constructive manner. Okay, let's get into it. So what is resentment? Resentment is this feeling of disappointment, anger, indignation, fear sometimes. You know, sometimes it's all of them at once. Sometimes it's a combination of a bunch of them. And it's a result of generally some unfair treatment that you think you've received in life. Or sometimes it's because a certain situation or person or even yourself didn't act in accordance to some standard or some expectation that you've set for yourself, that you're attached to. So you start to resent these people, situations, places, okay, resenting yourself, right? We'll talk about a bunch of different examples of things that you resent that are fucking you up, and it's just so unproductive. I'm gonna teach you to try to eradicate this general sentiment out of your life, to see how toxic and unproductive it is. So again, generally it's because you think you haven't been treated fairly, or because you think certain things have to go a certain way, but it doesn't go that way, and so you resent that. You're angry at that. You're afraid of what that's caused you. You're disappointed. Okay, so it can definitely run. It's a spectrum, of how powerful the sentiment is. Sometimes you can resent minor things. I resent that they didn't have sushi at the buffet today, right? It's like not the end of the world, but you're like, fuck, I wish that they had sushi at the buffet. I was kind of looking forward to it. I'm kind of bummed out. So it's like sometimes these small things, it's not really the end of the world, and it's like okay to like express these things, It's like, oh, I was looking forward to some sushi. They didn't have any sushi. So some of these smaller things are okay. It's cool to even talk about them sometimes. It's good to experience these emotions, to share them. It's when they're more serious. It's when the resentment is more serious. And not only do we express it and feel it, but we latch onto it. We latch onto it and we let it define us, define our identity, define our actions, okay? Define our entire being. And that's when resentment is a big problem. So, for example, you might resent the girlfriend that you're with right now for the fact that she's more experienced than you. How does that make you feel? It makes you feel like you've missed out. It makes you feel insecure, that maybe you're not good enough for her because she's more sexually experienced or some shit. Okay, it makes you feel afraid that if you're not good enough, she might leave you. And so, you resent her for it. You might slut shame her for it. You might be like, you might find out that she, had a threesome or something, and you might be like, oh my God, I didn't think you were that kind of girl. Da-da-da-da.
Yo, quick announcement, my dude.
Just want to briefly mention that over the last year, many guys have been asking me, how do you create chemistry with women? And this has sadly been exaggerated by the pandemic. That's right, I'm talking about that magic you see me create with the girls in my videos. So, I've decided to give away a super entertaining, uncut, infield bonus video showing exactly that. Just click on the link in the description below. By signing up, you're also joining the VIP list for our, wait for it, new course, Honest Chemistry, which will be released in the next couple of weeks and will teach you everything to do with creating chemistry from sexual tension to an amazing connection. This course has been more than a year in the making and I'm really excited to release it. So be sure to click the link in the description box or comment section below to get access to your bonus video today and stay in the loop. All right, now let's get back into it. And it's like, it's nothing to do with what kind of girl she is. In fact, let's be real, you probably like that, but it scares you. Maybe she had some slutty period in her early 20s. She fucked a bunch of dudes. She fucked some guy in a bathroom in the back of a car, okay, on the flight. And you didn't experience that. And it's not her fault. It's not her fault. And it's not even potentially a big deal. But you make it into a big deal. Like, she might like you for you, and maybe she's down to try some of this stuff with you, or, it doesn't matter. It might not change anything about the actual dynamic, but your perception of it and the fact that it makes you so afraid, the fact that you resent her for being this way, and the fact that you didn't experience these things yourself, as if this is her fault, this negative sentiment that you latch onto can result in you sabotaging the relationship, making her feel like shit, making yourself feel like shit. Instead of, just owning the fact that she's more experienced than you and just rolling with the relationship, seeing how it goes. Resentment encourages the idea of externalizing, of being a victim. It encourages the idea of externalizing the blame onto something else, onto the environment, onto another person, onto a situation, onto a place, onto yourself, when in reality, there's actually no one or no thing to blame, including yourself. I mean, you could say you have to take full ownership for anything that happens, right? So in some sense, you're taking ownership for what happened, but sometimes if you don't know any better, then you shouldn't be blaming yourself either. You shouldn't be harsh and critical with yourself. That's not healthy and unproductive. You can learn some lessons, but you shouldn't be angry with yourself. So for example, let's say you're working somewhere, okay? And I don't know, it's Thursday night, and you were gonna have a Friday and you were gonna have a date, okay? You were gonna leave to the cottage early or whatever. And your boss asks you to stay. And maybe your boss has been asking you to stay late, every Friday or something. Okay, and maybe that's not part of the agreement. Or maybe, maybe there's something that you think is not fair about the situation, but you've been putting up with it, let's say. You've been putting up with it, and now you were supposed to have this date, and now he's like, fuck, can you stay? And you're like, oh, fuck, I have to stay. Now I have to cancel my date. Fuck, this is fucking bullshit. I've been working overtime most Thursdays, most Fridays. I've been missing out. This wasn't even part of the deal. Blah, 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 blah. Well, whose fault is it if you're not communicating this to your boss? If you're just sucking it up? If you're just taking it? If you're just like, well, I guess that's what I have to do. If you're not negotiating some new kind of schedule. If you're not confronting your boss or your manager about this and saying yo, first of all, this wasn't in the agreement, or hey, can we actually make these changes? People often just don't communicate shit. They don't fucking communicate shit. They don't communicate the things they want, don't want, etc. And then they resent some person that's conveniently there, their boss, their partner, their girlfriend, for somehow, not knowing this, for pushing their own agenda. The boss is going to push his own agenda. If, I don't know, you don't like the fact that your girlfriend doesn't initiate sex with you, okay, or does something that you don't like, and you're not communicating it, and then you're expecting her to somehow know, or, and then resenting her in the process. If she's asking you to to go see her family every Sunday, and you're just doing it, but then you're hating it, and you're not saying anything about it, and you're resenting her in the process, well, how's that productive? Okay, how's that productive? So if this is something that happened in the past, well, you take ownership, but forgive yourself for the fact that you didn't know any better. But if this is happening in the present and you recognize this, well, you have the power to be like, yo, I don't want this, or I want that. Do you think we can make that happen? If yes, good. If not, maybe I'm walking. Okay, or maybe we have to reevaluate things. But otherwise, if you're just suffering in silence and in the process resenting someone else for your own shit, I mean, that's just, it's mind-boggling. And then people act passive-aggressive as a result. It's so icky, it's so unproductive, it's so toxic, and it's fucking you up. It's putting you in this passive, victim-like state where you're just at the mercy of things that are happening, and then you're vilifying people for things they're doing or not doing because you think magically that that's how things should be. It's absurd. It's fucking absurd. And that's another big part of resentment, is this unwillingness to accept the fact that there will be forces out of your control sometimes, that there are going to be things that you don't like or agree with, and that it cannot be changed necessarily, okay? Now, not liking something is one thing. It's okay not to like certain things that are happening in the present, certain things that are happening in the past. But if they can't necessarily if they can't be changed, they couldn't have been changed, then resenting it is not appropriate, right? It's unproductive and it's unjustified. And it's important to also recognize that, as far as you're concerned, even if ultimately things are our responsibility, sometimes if we, didn't know any better or weren't equipped to have made certain decisions or to do certain things a certain way, then that is also a force that's out of our control. Let's say you make some kind of a decision about something in life, whether it's a small decision or a bigger decision, and then things don't go a certain way. And then you resent that. You resent the situation. You resent yourself. You're so attached to how you think things should have gone that you're just so angry that it didn't go that way. And how ridiculous is that? Well, first of all, why did you think it had to happen that way? Why did you think it had to happen that way? Second of all, so what if it didn't happen that way? What good is it to sit there and be angry with the situation? You ordered some food, Uber Eats, they fucked up your order. Okay, they fucked up your order. It was a big fucking inconvenience. You can be kind of annoyed by that. But some people make a huge fucking deal out of it. Oh my God, they forgot the tomatoes in my salad. I was having such a shitty day and I just wanted those tomatoes in my salad. They forgot the cheese. Oh fuck, I asked for chicken and they put beef. Or I said no meat because I'm a vegan and they put meat. Oh! It's you take it so personally, almost at an identity level, they attacked your veganism because some employee was, I don't know, overwhelmed and fucked up your order, But you take it as some attack on an identity level. So it's okay, that happened. For whatever reason, someone wasn't trained properly, someone was overwhelmed, someone just made a fucking mistake. It's sometimes it's not even, you can go and try to get a refund or whatever. Sometimes it's not even productive. It's you're wasting more energy and being angry and negative and going through this refund process, going through an hour of work just to prove a point, when it's so what? Let's say $12 down the drain, you know, big deal. The cost of life, the cost of doing business, you know, instead you go and you order something else. Within 20 minutes, you have another meal, you know, or you try food at a different restaurant and it wasn't as good as you'd liked and you resent it. Fuck, that fucking food was bad. Oh, I was expecting it to be good. And like you let it like ruin your whole evening. But, you know, I wasted $30 on that food. It's like, oh, it's just, it's, you know, and sometimes it's like a small thing, you know, but sometimes it's like, you know, food, right? Although, again, people let it ruin their evening. But sometimes it's like a bigger thing, you know, like let's say you invested a few $1,000s into some project, you know, working with some developer, you know, some marketer, whatever. And it doesn't go the way you would have liked, you know, and you're like, oh, fuck. You know, let's say it's $5,000. I spent all this money. I invested into this relationship. We spent a month and he just didn't do a good job. And I thought he's going to do a good job. It's like you're so angry and resentful at him, at the situation, at yourself for like making that stupid decision. Oh, you should have known better. You should have known better. I shouldn't have listened to Gary. Gary told me to go with this guy, or Gary told me not to go with that guy. So you're either blaming yourself, or you're blaming the developer, you're blaming your friend Gary for the suggestion he made. When it's like in the end, well, it's just that the events conspired in this way. You know, Gary was doing his best, you were doing your best, and the developer was doing his best. It's like you took a chance to explore this new relationship, right? To try this thing out. You made some kind of an investment into a project, didn't work out a certain way. Well, that's life. That's business, you know? You try stuff out, it doesn't always go a certain way. Who said that it had to go a certain way? You would have liked for it to all be smooth, but most of the time in life, it's not that smooth. So, okay, you learn your lesson, you take your loss, take it like a fucking man, you move on. You don't resent, you know, this developer you worked with for not performing the way you think he should have. Oh, he didn't do this and this and this. Well, he doesn't know any better. Maybe this is like what he's used to, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. Like he probably won't change right now, so you can switch, right? We get so attached to how we think things should be. You know, a few years ago, I fell in love with this girl. Well, it was more like an infatuation. Thought it was love. And, you know, I thought she was the one. You know? And there were actually some red flags along the way. This was the girl who actually cheated out of some fear and insecurity. There were some red flags along the way that I saw. But I decided to persevere, to ignore them. Think, you know what? Fuck it. You know, certain things can be fixed. They can be fixed, right? And, you know, in the end, she was so afraid that she didn't think she was worthy. She was afraid that it was going to end. She had some baggage she was carrying, blah, blah, blah. That, you know, she kept trying to sabotage the relationship. So she cheated on me. She told me about it. Didn't even like bother me that much because I knew why she cheated. You know, it was more like troubling to see that this was here another sign that she was sabotaging the situation. In the end, you know, we break up and I'm just devastated. I'm so fucking devastated. Like, fuck, this turned my world upside down for a while. And I was also going through a really rough time in the business. It was brutal. It was brutal. Some real lows. And this girl was also like super in love with me, by the way. Or we were both infatuated with one another. Like, I don't even see it as love. I think love has to come from a very healthy place where both parties are just super in alignment. But where I'm going with this is that I was devastated. I'm like, we're in love with one another. And how could this be? How could this be that we're in love with one another and some bullshit, that's how I saw it, you know, some bullshit in her mind is just preventing us from being together. This is ridiculous. It was just, I couldn't come to terms with it. I was like, this can be fixed. You know, we had a couple of conversations, but in the end, I was just like, at that point, I was just like, I decided to like give her space for a bit. for 6 months. And then after like 6 or 8 months or something, I wrote to her again, you know, hoping that some space would help us like reconcile or whatever. For a long time, and in the end, nothing happened. For a long time, I was like so resentful. I was so resentful towards her, towards the situation. It's like, what the fuck? Like, I meet this girl who I thought was like the one, you know? Over time, I realized like she wasn't really the one necessarily. It wasn't a healthy relationship necessarily. There were a lot of good things about it, but it wasn't necessarily a good, solid relationship, the way I see things today. But I was like, how could this be? You know, why can't she just get over this shit in her mind? This baggage, this unresolved stuff. Why can't she just like get over her fears? You know, why does this timing in life have to be such that we can't be together? Why couldn't the timing be different? So you're so attached to how you think things should be, right? Because you really wanted to make it happen, okay, for whatever reason. Maybe I was like, you know, at this low point in the business, and I was really hoping that this relationship could work out, that could like, you know, save me from my business, from my trials and tribulations and all the demons that I was experiencing in the business. I was so attached to that, you know, I resented her and I resented the situation for not having panned out, not in a favorable way to me. And, you know, and so you realize it's like, well, that's the way it had to play out. That's the way it had to fucking play out. And be grateful for, you know, over time I realized that, okay, well, that's the way it had to be. As life is sometimes. It's not in alignment with how you saw it. That's the way it had to be, and I took away all the good things from that relationship and all the lessons. Now I look at it fondly. I look back at it fondly. It was quite the ride, but I don't carry any kind of like negative resentment. It would just be so unproductive, and so, if you actually put things into perspective, so counterintuitive. You know, again, this can happen in so many different ways. Sometimes we resent our parents. You know, I have clients that, you know, I've resented my parents for some years for not supporting me for first of all, instilling all these like fears and negative beliefs in me. They were so risk averse and fearful, you know, because of their conditioning and all that stuff. They instilled a lot of this in me, and it took me a long time to get over this. Sometimes I still struggle with some of the bullshit that I've been programmed with. And I remember when I was starting out with Honest Signals, first like few years, they were really negative, discouraging, and all that. And I was just resenting them for it, for how they were in the past, for how they are now. Then over time, I'm like, bro, why are you resenting your parents? They're doing their best. They don't know any better. This is how they're wired. This is how they're programmed. They're concerned for you. They are how they are, right? So you're allowing this to make you feel a certain way. You're attached to some idea of how your parents should be. Well, they're not that way. Okay, and maybe you wouldn't be the way you are if they were super, I don't know, maybe if they were a different way, maybe I would have never started this channel. Maybe I wouldn't have been as rebellious and had to like step up and leverage some of this like fear and negative emotion that I had, where I was like, fuck it, you know? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna step up. I'm gonna push through my fears. So, you know, I'm gonna, you know, not be like my parents, escape that kind of reality. Sometimes this negative emotion actually pushes you towards something. And then you can realize, you can process that and realize, well, okay, it kind of got me here, but maybe I should like let go of a lot of this stuff and move, you know, not from a place of lack, but from a place of, or not from a place of fear, but from a place of love towards what I, you know, genuinely want to do, etc. I talked about this in another video. But if you're not attached, if you let go of this idea of how you think your parents should be or should have been, then you accept them for how they are, and you don't carry this resentment. You know, I had this media scandal in 2017 where they wrote a bunch of negative shit in the media, in the Toronto Star and the Metro newspaper, in Vice, about me and my old partner, Austin. I think some girl that Austin had been seeing, I don't know what happened between them, but she wanted to get back at him. I'm not really sure what happened, if that was actually the case. But anyway, I think she wanted to get back at him. She had a friend who was a reporter in the Toronto Star, and she reached out to us and said, "We're going to run this article about you, saying you're a misogynist and all that stuff. Do you care to comment?" We did an interview, and she only used like 5% of the interview, and wrote a pretty nasty piece. Not as nasty as it could have been. She at least didn't say we were misogynists, but there was a lot of association bias, talking about how we're filming without consent, and the article mentioned a bunch of some other rapists and some other shit, just to make it juicier, vilify us more through association bias. So anyways, it was this nasty article that happened, but I remember it just fucked me up. Now my name's out there, girls Google it, blah, blah, blah. For a while, I resented that happened. I resented the newspaper, the girl, the situation. But it's what is that going to accomplish? What about accepting the fact that, hey, this was probably meant to happen or had to happen? Hey, you're running this kind of a business that's kind of controversial, and there are these leftist newspapers where, if it bleeds, it leads, as they say. They're trying to find some juicy story. Was it not probabilistic that somehow through all these girls you're filming or meeting, you or your partner, that something like this was bound to happen? Someone was going to get upset, go to the media, something was going to get discovered. Come on, let's be real. There was a strong probability that something like that was going to happen. So why not accept the fact, hey, it comes, think of it as cost of doing business. It comes with the territory. It comes with the territory of running this kind of business. It comes with the territory of life. Sometimes you have certain shit that happens, right? So yeah, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be out there, and I wouldn't have to deal with this. But I learned a bunch of shit from it. I grew from it. So instead of, latching, hanging on to this negative sentiment, I'm like, hey, that's the way it had to be. It is what it is. Of course that girl was going to write that nasty, that reporter was going to write that nasty article. I mean, that's, she, in her mind, she's thinking she's doing right. Oh, those fucking, evil pickup guys or dating coaches, they're misogynists. Let me get back at them. They deserve it. So in her mind, she's doing right. The newspaper's doing right. Yeah, let's run this fucking story about these scumbags, right? And they're trying to make money. It's a business. Of course they're going to do that. It's why are you resenting them for it? It's guys who resent the current state of affairs. They resent the feminists and the leftists and the social justice warriors, right? And, society that made them less masculine. Maybe they grew up in a different culture that made them more, that was very emasculating. And they resent that. It's stop being a victim. Stop resenting all these things. Just focus on, in light of the circumstances, in light of all these variables, what can you do? What can you learn? What can you control? What can you forgive? Where do you hold the power? Okay, just focus on the things that you can do and the things that are productive. This is all unproductive, and it's distorting your perception of things. Sometimes you have guys that will resent their wingman, a guy that they're going out with to meet and attract girls to improve, their success in their social and dating life. And their wingman, their friend, is doing better than them. He's, for whatever reason, maybe he's intuitively better at this, has higher emotional intelligence, maybe he's better looking, maybe he's naturally more confident, maybe he's had experience in some other part of his life that has carried over into this part of his life, and so it's making it easier for him, okay? Maybe he's a faster learner, whatever it is, okay? And they resent that. You know, I talk about this idea of comparing yourself to others, which is just highly, highly unproductive. I always say the race is long and it's only with yourself. And sometimes it's just so, you know, it's easy to slip into this mode where, especially when you have someone that's like close to you, right? Someone you're going out with, a buddy, a wingman. I mean, guys will resent other guys as well that are not necessarily close to them, but when they're close to them, it's especially, I think, painful for guys. It's like, oh, well, this guy is getting more results than me. You know, this guy's doing better. Oh, fuck. Like, he doesn't have to work as hard as I do. He doesn't have to struggle as hard as I do. These other guys don't have to struggle as hard as I do, you know? Why am I short? Why am I bald? Why is my emotional intelligence so bad, you know? Why is my voice the way it is? Why this? Why that? This injustice. I resent the injustice. So fucking unproductive. Your friend or your wingman is on his own path. He's doing his own thing, okay? Some other guy over there is doing his own thing, okay? Brad Pitt is doing his own thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, okay? Also, one man's strengths can also be his weaknesses, okay? And one man's weaknesses can also be his strengths, okay? How you leverage your situation, okay, your unique situation, is up to you. So, yeah, perhaps, I don't know, you're not as good looking, but maybe that'll force you to work on your confidence more, on your presence, on your voice, on your ability to speak in an engaging way, okay? On being more charismatic, more charming, okay, more interesting. And guess what? That's what women really want, okay? So you make the most of your situation. You accept the things you can't control, you improve the things that you can, okay? And you're grateful for, you know, the leverage that these things give you, okay? Some guys that have it easier, they're not as appreciative of, you know, of the results and the progress that they make. They don't do this as much. You know, the fact that I struggled so much, well, when I started getting the results that I did, I appreciated it a lot more. I grew a lot more out of it. Now look, I built, you know, a business out of it. Okay, this became my passion. So it's so unproductive to compare yourself to others and also to like resent them, you know, or this general sense of injustice. You know, I remember working with this client and he was making progress, but sometimes he would like, you know, he really struggled with this. He would sometimes see like a couple, you know, walking, and he'd be like, you know, you look at this couple and he'd immediately like assume, okay, this is just some normal Chad, and like, he didn't have to work as hard for this hot girl, like, that's so unfair, like, he just probably got her through some social circle. I mean, he doesn't even know this guy's story, like, right, but he's assuming this. Like, why do I have to work so hard, you know, and I immigrated to this country and I had this like extra layer of difficulty because I also had to like, you know, learn to improve my English better and like learn to understand the culture better. It's like, yeah, so what? So fucking what? But now you have this like different perspective on life, right? What it means to be an immigrant, what it means to, you know, go through to a certain struggle, to rise to certain challenges. Okay, where someone who maybe has it easier in some sense didn't have to go through that, right? And then maybe they'll have to go through that in some other capacity, right? In their business or in their family life, whatever. Point is, it's so toxic to harbor these resentments. Perspective is important. I always say this. Perspective is key. You have guys that have these, like I said, bitter views about women, you know, or I remember talking to a client and he got, you know, fucked over in a relationship somehow. I don't remember how exactly, but then he was telling me about his, you know, new relationship that he was in, and he's like, wow, I'm really keeping this girl like at a distance. I'm only like seeing her once a week, and like I'm not really letting her in much emotionally. I'm afraid to be vulnerable. So how is that good? Because of something that happened in the past, you don't even have, necessarily the most accurate perception of what the fuck happened. Not to mention, this was a unique situation with a unique girl. Now instead of like making sense of all that stuff, you're bringing this all into here. Instead of forgiving, you're bringing this all into here. And now what are you doing? You're sabotaging your current relationship. You're sabotaging your current relationship. Instead of like being 100 with this girl, letting her in and like, building something, you're keeping her at a distance. You're pushing her away. Well, that's just sabotage. So you're going to potentially fuck up this relationship as a result of your baggage. I'm not saying the guy has to like move in with a girl right away and be completely vulnerable and completely open, completely trusting within a month. But, you find a healthy balance, right? You find a healthy balance, but these like, weird fake boundaries that people create because they've been hurt, where they're in self-preservation mode, or they're playing not to lose instead of playing to win because they've been scarred in the past. Well, it's taking away from their ability to fully experience something new. Okay, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in a business venture, whether it's in a friendship. So it's toxic, it's unproductive. And you know what? Something that I haven't mentioned that's really worth mentioning is that this not only infects your general belief systems and MO and causes you suffering, but it infects your vibe, right? You can sense this off of people. Like it comes through, or it comes out in your honest signals. People tend to be that are heavily resentful, are more negative. They're bitter. They complain a lot. They put on inauthentic facades where they try to be more of an asshole because they're afraid of getting hurt. Okay, they're carrying this baggage, so they're more mean to people, and it kind of perpetuates this toxicity. I've had clients where you can kind of sense it in their vibe, and I've interacted with people that way, and it just like further repels people from them, which then creates more of these unjust situations in their eyes, making them increasingly more bitter and more resentful. So it becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So they sabotage their interactions with girls. They sabotage relationships. If it's with, if they're working with clients, they'll sabotage client relationships. And so again, it just perpetuates all this, perpetuates these bad beliefs. So very important to keep that in mind. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to hit that fucking like button, to drop a comment, maybe share something that you resent or have resented in the past, something that's been weighing you down. Put it in the comments. Add anything else you want in the comments. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified when we put out new videos, and get that free bonus video, 30-minute infield interaction to show you how I create chemistry with this girl. It'll also put you on the VIP list for our course, Honest Chemistry, coming soon. Super stoked about that. You'll be notified of any updates. All right, link in the description, link in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and until next time.